I don't know how the name Crusher Broomfield. I'm not sure exactly how that came about. I don't
You want me
know.
to tell you? You want me to tell you how you got
Yeah,
it?
you can. Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
so Garvin saw you. They was going to do the same thing with you that they did with Jerry Blackwell, and he was Crusher Blackwell in Knoxville when he was working for Fuller. So they did the thing like remember they come out of the box and everything. The midget did, but
Yeah, yeah.
so Crusher CB was Crusher Blackwell, but CB was Crusher Broomfield. So he was he
Okay.
was he was because then before cable TV you'd take your troop or you'd do different angles from different places because it wasn't everybody hadn't seen him.
Right,
It's like
right,
where Buddy Rogers would take his whole troop to each area and they'd go in
right,
and hot shot. Then 8 guys would go leave and go somewhere else, get over.
right. Yeah, I got you. I had
Yeah,
no idea. I figured it was either Savage or Garvin. I figured it was one of those that came up with the Crusher Broomfield gimmick.
right.
It was
Uh-huh.
just basically a big Southern boy. They gave me like a hat, a cowboy looking hat thing, but that was the basic gimmick. I was just a big Southern boy, and the whole gimmick, I was kind of a I was a servant for Macho Man, basically. I was kind of a servant type thing, and I would have to get the ring jackets. I would have to get Macho's, whatever he wore. They would show me polishing Macho Man's shoes and whatever, Basically, I was just, on call 24 hours a day, supposedly for him. And then eventually the storyline, Garvin kept saying, Crusher, man, why do you take this, blah, why do you take that crap from Macho Man or whatever? Eventually the storyline came out that Macho Man supposedly had purchased my sister, was paying my sister's hospital bills who was in the hospital. And supposedly for me to, as payback, I had to be his, manservant or whatever you want to call it, and come to find out, my sister, storyline sister, which I never had passed away, but I was never told this. So that's why all this came about. For a long time, I was just a heel with Macho Man and him and Bob Orton and whatever. We used to do the interviews at his, he would do a lot of his interviews at his house, like he'd have his weight bench right there sitting there and he'd do his interviews at his house. Hey, freak out, he's still, that's just, that's the way he was. Even then, he had the Macho Man interview, same type interviews. And when I first got to ICW, I didn't have a place to live, so I stayed with Macho Man for maybe 2 or 3 days. Wasn't a long time, maybe 3 days. It'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning. He had his, weight set, the big steel kind and all that, set up in his living room area. He'd get up like at 3 o'clock and come in there and just start doing bench presses, and just waking me up. He's like benching and yeah, and all that stuff. But it paid off. Look at the way the man looked, right? And then they sent me to live with this guy called, well, like I said before, Big Boy Williams. I went and he had an apartment, so they took me there. And the first night there, in the middle of the night, now this is the middle of the night. He flicks the Big Boy Williams flicks the lights on, and he's up on top of a dresser, and he's gigged himself with a gig, and he screams at me, and juice is pouring out of his head. I set up like a 12-year-old girl or something, just scream. I was terrified. And he's like laughing. It was 3 or 4 other guys there, man. They was all just laughing their ass off at him.
So
but I'd never seen nothing like that in my life.
That's awesome. So you met Rip and he was packing. How about you, Rip? You remember first time Crusher came in, talking to him?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just sit there and shut up because I was a part owner in the company, but I was low man on the totem pole, and I
didn't even know that till recently that Rip was part owner.
Yeah.
And I was green. I was green as grass, so I was trying to shut up and watch and listen and learn. So I go to those TV meetings and they'd ask my opinion. I said, no, fuck that. I don't know anything. I said, you guys, it'd be like Orton and Roop and Randy talking with Garvin. You know what I mean? And they'd ask, well, what do you think? I said, no, I don't know enough of this. I just got to sit back there and watch this. Maybe 10 years from now, I'll start to figure it out. But right now, this shit's above me. No, first of all, I got a half-ass look good. I need to get better in the fucking ring because, like, we weren't trained. So I learned in the goddamn ring. And eventually it started making sense when we was having, 340, 350 matches out of the year. Then you learn pretty fast. And then when you're young, you work with older people. So then you really learn.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was real lucky because, like he says, I got to work with Bob Roop a lot. I got to work, different, major stars that knew kind of what was going on in the business, So I got to work with a lot of these guys. And like if Rip was green, I was worse than him. So you imagine what that was like. I was terrified. I'd never been in front of a camera like that. I'd never done a promo or anything. So when I was actually doing in promos, if you ever find some of them old ones on the YouTube or something, you can see, man, my eyes are like, I'm just terrified of that. I don't know what to do on that camera, because Macho Man's doing this. He's got a snake around his neck. Got Bob Orton over there. It's all just crazy stuff. I don't know what's going on.
Now, I remember
I hung in there. And for me, man, it was just like, I just couldn't believe I'm getting to go into the wrestling ring almost every night of the week and wrestle somebody, whoever it happened to be. That was like, I'm living the dream. What are you talking about?
All because of a car ride you got in. That's awesome.
Yeah, just one. Yeah, exactly. Just if I wouldn't have, if he had been full and I wouldn't have made it, I probably would still be in Spartanburg. Just probably be dead. I don't know. But
I remember watching as a kid, so I remember you was Savage. Yeah, you had all kind of sympathy for me on that. When were you involved in the box or was that Pez? The box. What was that?
They used that box twice, I think is what it was. But we had CB. The CB was already on there, right?
Right.
Was that the first time you come out in the box?
And then right. What had happened was, it kind of started showing a little. After a while, all this stuff built up, and Garvin's telling me, hey man, why don't you get away from Savage, and I'm gonna find out what's going on. So Garvin finally exposes what's going on with Savage, not, with the hospital bills and this and that. So, me and Randy and whoever else is in his group at this time start having a little bit of friction, nothing really serious, but just a little bit, just to kind of people, like I'd hold the fist up, and the people would be, yeah, hit him. And then Macho Man would be pointing at me and say, you son of a blah, 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 whatever he's telling me. And then finally I'd open the hand up and, be all sad, people would be like, oh man, I thought, he was going to switch, but I wouldn't switch.
I was one of those people.
So eventually what happened was, Garvin started having matches with Randy for the contract all around the whole area, contract against, loser leaves ICW, or if Garvin wins, he wins my contract. So they came out with the box gimmick. This is after I still hadn't left Randy, but it was enough friction where, people really wasn't sure what was going on. So they came out, the first time they did the box, they come out with the CB box. They wheel it in and they opened the box and there was a little person inside, but one of the, now I call them midgets, but.
Mighty Cupid.
Mighty Cupid, but it had
dressed up as a bumblebee.
Canadian bumblebee.
Yeah.
So he was running around all crazy, blah, 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 blah. So after that, they started advertising, Ronnie Garvin and Canadian Bumblebee against Macho Man and whoever, Bob Orton and whoever. But they had fixed a mask for me, like the Bumblebee mask and, the outfit and everything. So I ended up being the Canadian Bumblebee. So with the people thinking, it's going to be, the midget little person at the show, but I walk out instead and people, know who I am, of course. So during the match, I do the old Dusty Rhodes Midnight Rider where, referee's got his back. I lift him a mask up and, different things like that, So eventually that went on, a few weeks or whatever. And then finally Garvin wins my contract and I turn babyface all the way. And, the rest is just, all history. you know. But I mean, I wouldn't. That was some of the best times of my life, you know.
Big gold and a billfold, so swole that I can't get the shit closed. So I money fold and rubber band wrap, and when it pop.